Now, you mentioned your sister Gigi.
Yep.
She's more famous than everybody in this room.
Yeah.
Beautiful soul, beautiful story. Talk about the transition of coming back, and being with Gigi and me and your sister and doing all these amazing things.
So now it's I had to go back to the end of summer 1998. I was in 10th grade and I was visiting the city for the week. I was staying with my uncle. So every time I'd come to the city, I'd stay for a few days. Sometimes over the summer, I'd stay for a week or two.
Yeah.
And I'd always get a hold of my mom. Remember, this is the late 90s. So there's maybe cell phones. There's no texting. There's no, nothing like that. So my mom would live in apartment to apartment to apartment to apartment all the time. So I'm in the city. It's late August 1998. The Yankees were on fire. The NBA was actually in a lockout. Just to give you a perspective of what was going on around that time. Damn. So I got a hold of my mom, said, I'm going to be in the city for the week. Can you take me school clothes shopping? Boy, I love to go to Fordham Road or Southern Boulevard. Get the flyest gear.
Talk about it, man. Talk about it.
She would take me school shopping. So at the time, she was with Dorian, married. I knew they were in some funny business, but I didn't really know to what level. So now, I think my uncle got a hold of my mom the night before, late August night, 1998. So, I'm going to work on, let's just say it was Tuesday. Let's say it was a Tuesday, right? I'm going to work. So Anthony's just I knew where she lived. She lived over around Westchester Square. My uncle lived in Morris Park, not too far. So I'm going to work. Anthony's going to be at your apartment 10, 11 a.m. Cool. My uncle goes to work and I walk over to my mom's apartment on Westchester Square. Knock on the door. I hear noise. I hear yelling. Nobody's answering. I just want to go school clothes shopping. I want to hang out with my mom too. Yeah. All of a sudden she answers the door and her and Dorian were just strung out on heroin. Strung the fuck out. And my mom was like, who are you? Who are you? I'm like, I'm your son. We're supposed to go school shopping. And she's like, I don't even know who you are. Damn. So I went running home, got back to my uncle's apartment. 10, 15 minutes later, I called him at work and he came home right away to be with me that night. Sure enough, the next day, my mom and I actually hung out. And she did take me school shopping the next day. And ironically, the next night we went to a Yankee game, me and my mom. Crazy. Nice. And actually, David Wells took a perfect game into the 7th inning with two outs. Wow. So anyway, the reason I'm sharing that is because about a month later, I was coming back to the city for another Yankee game. End of September, did the usual, called my mom. My mom had a cell phone. I didn't. Again, it was 1998. So I was in 10th grade. I called her. I was like, hey, I'm coming down to the city. I think it was a Thursday. I'm going to the Yankee game Thursday night. Maybe we can get lunch Thursday or breakfast Friday morning before I head back upstate. Oh, I moved. Well, where'd you move to? And she moved all the time. Yeah. So I'm just thinking she moved to a different neighborhood. She moved to Vegas.
What?
Her and Dorian moved to Vegas.
That's crazy.
I'm like, oh, okay. So I guess I won't see you. A few months go by. And I get a call from my mom. I want to say it was around Christmas time. And she's like, now mind you, I'm not an expert on female reproductive issues, anything like that. My mother was about 40 years old and doing heroin almost every day. She calls me and she's like, I'm pregnant. I'm like, what? At this point, I know my mom has a drug problem. Yeah. I'm like, dog, it's most likely hard enough for a woman to get pregnant late 30s, early 40s. Yeah. And you got pregnant when you're doing drugs every day. Damn. Like, holy shit. And I'm like, she's like, you're going to be a brother. I'm like, wow. And I wasn't happy. I wasn't sad. I was just like, numb. Yeah. It's like, okay. But then around February 1999, March 99, my mom moved to Florida. She went from Vegas, the Bronx, to Vegas to Florida.
That's a big move.
Yeah. A big move. Goes to Florida. G was born August 16th, 1999. Wow. I did not meet her until November of 1999. I went down to Florida. I met her. Yeah. I fell in love with her pretty quick. And then I say I was with her for 3 or 4 days in Florida in November of 1999. But I went back home to Walton and I was like, wow, I have a baby sister. But I'm like, am I going to see her much? Because she lived down in Florida. All of a sudden, a few weeks later, my grandmother was like, we need to get them up to Walton because I know my daughter's not capable of raising a kid. Damn. You know what I'm saying? So we got to get them here. Yeah. So right before Christmas 1999, Dorian, my mom, and G drove from Florida, West Palm Beach to Walton. My grandparents got them an apartment across town. And for the first time in my life, I was around my mom every day. And I had this 4 or 5 month old sister. And it was the coolest thing, man. Cause I'll be honest, babies always kind of scared me or whatever. Yeah. I never really touched any. So I never really touched a baby until I met my sister. And especially when the first time I met her, that first 3 or 4 days, I really didn't touch her too much. I would just be like, what's up? You know? But when she came to Walton a month later, I couldn't take my hands off of her. Like I loved it. It was the most amazing thing. And then all of 11th grade, so my mom got an apartment, her, Dorian, and G across town, 5 minutes from where we lived. It was really cool because my mom was mother of the year for this. She would buy me and my friends alcohol. Wow. It was great. But listen, she did drive everybody home. Yeah. I want to make that clear. Yeah. That's why I said mother of the year. She drove everybody home. Nobody drove drunk. Just for the record.
Dang.
So it was awesome. 11th grade was the time of my life because I'm around my mom every day. My mom is pretty cool, actually. And we're partying. And we would have parties at my mom's apartment. It gave us a safe place to hang out, me and my friends. I'm not saying it was right, just for the record. I by no means saying it was right.
Yeah.
But it was fun. But I was around my sister every day, and it was really cool. And then fast forward to February of 2001, Dorian, he didn't seem like he was too into my sister, her dad, and he bounced. Said he was going to visit his mom in, I believe, Virginia.
Yeah.
And took off, went to Texas. And literally, to make a long story short, he never looked back. And went to Texas, left my mom out the blue, left G out the blue, and my mom was kind of left alone with my sister. I graduated high school a few months later and moved back to the Bronx.
Dang.
And then and my grandparents left Walton. They got the apartment in Co-op City where, they passed away, a long time now. But, I have the apartment. And my mom, it was me, my mom, and G moved back to the Bronx in July of 2001. And I was back in the city. I loved it. Loved being back. Like I said, as much as I love Walton, I wasn't going to stay there. And then September 2001, 9/11 happens. I ran from the building falling. I was working in the mailroom at my uncle's job. I was only 17 years old.
Wow.
I ran from the buildings falling, went through a lot with that. And then around 2004, 2005, my mom relapsed. So she was clean. She probably stopped doing heroin when she found out she was pregnant with G.
Yeah.
To about 04, 05, where she relapsed and got back on heroin for the next probably till 2011. She has been clean 11, 12 years. But which is great. It's a major accomplishment. Yeah. So she got back on heroin around 04, 05-ish. And I was doing a lot with G between her being born and 4 years old. But when my mom got back on drugs, like, I was doing a lot more, I took her to school every day. I'm 20 years old with my baggy clothes, my baggy Stephon Marbury jersey with my tape up with the Il Guido haircut. And I'm taking my sister to school every day.
Dang.
And to be honest, it was the coolest thing ever. It was awesome. I loved it. And I loved it. It was great. I loved every second of it.
Yeah, man. So eventually you take full custody of.
So I never had full custody legally.
Okay.
Which is fine. It didn't matter. I didn't need it. But yeah, I would say that's what the way the timeline worked. About 06, my sister moved in with my grandmother and I, and my grandmother was in a wheelchair, so she couldn't get around much. So around by 06, I was basically literally doing everything with my sister. I mean, there was other people that helped too. My aunt played a big role in my sister's life. My uncle played a big role in my sister's life. But by 06, I was literally doing everything. But I never really thought about it. I just did it.
Yeah.
It was your heart, man. That's your sister.
Yeah, exactly. You just did it. When people would always say, how'd you do that? I'm like, it was easy actually. But but for a lot of people, it may not be. Yeah. For me, it was. I loved her, and that was it. I did whatever I had to do for her. Just don't bother me when the Knicks are playing. That's it.
She understood that or not?
Yeah, but she still bothered me.
So take us to that moment, where you find out, G is going through what she's going through, and how that affected your family, how that affected you.
So remember, G beat cancer the first time. So it was back.
Explain it to the audience they never heard the story before.
Yeah. So it was back in 2010. We'll take it to about May 2010. It was
G's 10, 11 at this time.
G's 10.
Okay.
My mom is living in like a halfway house. So it's basically me, my grandmother, and G. And it was about May 2010. And I remember it was the middle of the night, and I heard G throwing up down the hall. And I'm like, that's weird. I'm like, whatever. She probably just fucking ate too much. Yeah. But it was happening a lot the next few weeks and the next month. Like, she's always throwing up. I'm like, the fuck? And I'm like, is she making it? She's a young girl. Is she making herself throw up? She's trying to lose weight. I have no idea. Like, why is she throwing up so much? So around early June 2010, I bring her to the hospital. And they admit her. They said she's dehydrated. So I'm like, cool. Fucking pump her with fluids, all this shit.
Yeah.
And she's fine for a week or so. All of a sudden, same thing happens. She starts, throwing up all the time. Never really complained of headaches too much, which was ironic because her cancer was brain cancer. Bring her to the hospital a second time. They say the same thing. She's dehydrated. Okay, whatever. Pump her the fluids. Now it's mid-July 2010. 2 months later, same shit's going on. And I take her to Jacoby. And I was basically like, y'all motherfuckers are going to admit her, you're going to give her a bed, and you're going to diagnose her with something. Because I am not a doctor, but I know for damn sure this kid should not be just drinking a sip of water and vomiting.
Yeah.
So sure enough, they admitted her. Gave her a bed. It was a Wednesday night. I had to tape a show for the Knicks Blog Radio that night. So I went home. Uncle stayed with her till about 10 o'clock at night. My uncle left the hospital. I went back to Jacoby. I stayed the night with her. Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. Now on Friday, they tested her for everything in the book. They even gave her a pregnancy test.
Wow.
I was like, why? They gave her every test in the book. She was 10, mind you, 10 years old. Gave her every test. So it was Friday during the day, I think, and I wasn't around. I was doing something, and my uncle was there. And he calls me, and he says, so you're doing MRI on her brain this evening. They think she could have brain cancer. So I'm like, brain cancer? The problem's obviously in her stomach. She's throwing up. He's like, I don't know. That's what they said. All right, cool. Well, I went back there Friday night, stayed the night with her. We're going to get the results of the MRI Saturday afternoonish around this time. I wake up Saturday. Actually, I remember the Yankees won that Friday night. It was the first game they played after George Steinbrenner died. Wow. I have for the people that are listening, watching, I have a really sick memory. So for life events, I usually equate it what was happening in sports. So
I
like,
just realized that,
So that Friday night,
there's a reason why you are who you
the
are.
Yankees won in a walk-off hit, and it was the first game they played since George Steinbrenner passed. So now it's Saturday morning. I wake up at the hospital. I go, I'm gonna go home and shower and change. I'm gonna go play some basketball. I'll be back at like 2 o'clock. She's like, okay, cool. Because when you're taking care of somebody in the hospital full time, you do need to leave sometimes and go for a walk, go for a run, go play basketball, do what you love. Yeah. For even if it's for just 2 hours. So I go play ball. I'm at Waterbury Park. My uncle calls me. He went back to the hospital during the day. He goes, hello, what's up? He's like, the results of the MRI came. My uncle's got this Italian shit where he's like, you don't talk on the phone if it's important. Yeah. So he's like, I can't talk on the phone. I'm like, motherfucker, what are the results? He's like, we're not talking on the phone. Mind you, I'm 10 minutes away anyway. Yeah. He's like, they found brain cancer. I'm like, what? I rush back to the hospital, and me and my uncle meet, and I'm like, at that point, I'm only 26 years old. So I'm like, does she know yet? And he's like, no. So we both go into the room, and we tell her that she has brain cancer, and she's hysterical. I'm hysterical. And that night we got transferred down to New York Presbyterian Children's Hospital, where that would become my life for the next 2 years. I went from being 26 years old, about to, go out all summer. I was in really good shape. I was about to go out all summer, hit the bars, meet some girls, have some fun. And now I'm living in the hospital. I stayed there every single night and then all of a sudden I'm in these meetings where these doctors are using words I couldn't even dream of spelling. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that was my life. And then that was my life for the next year and a half, nonstop being in the hospital, tons of chemo, radiation in Boston. And to make a long story short, February 13th, 2012 comes after so much chemo, radiation, multiple, surgeries, brain surgery. February 13th, 2012, they said she was cancer-free. Wow. And that was one of the best moments of my life. And we celebrated every year on February 13th.